Tesla's likely bottomed and is now set to grow with new vehicle deliveries.
Delivery numbers and the road ahead. Let's bring in Tim Higgins. He's business columnist at the Wall Street Journal, also a CNBC contributor and author of Power Play, Tesla, Elon Musk, and the Bet of the Century. Also with us, George Gianarikas is an analyst at Canaccord Genuity. George, these numbers, delivery numbers, are better than you expected. Looks like some of those big inventory numbers are being worked down here, but there's still questions about demand and supply from the Chinese makers out there. So what keeps this stock moving in this positive direction?
Well, thanks for having me on. And we think the really important metric from a stock perspective is to watch year-over-year growth trends. If our numbers are right over the next couple of quarters and next couple of years, the year-over-year growth in earnings and non-GAAP earnings and revenue likely bottomed in the first quarter. And if you pay attention to what the stock's done, it probably bottomed in the first quarter. And what gives us a little bit of conviction that they probably will hit that 1.8 number and likely grow into next year is that they've promised to release new vehicles. We don't know what they'll look like towards the end of this year and into early next year. So that gives us some confidence and hope that they can continue that growth trajectory over the next several quarters.
Tim, how important is the premium end to Tesla right now versus that low end where they're facing this challenge from Chinese makers? And I don't know if they're going to have the same kinds of help from the government, either in the forms of tariffs or incentives to keep them moving vehicles versus this new challenger.
Yeah, this is one of the challenges for Tesla right now is they're kind of stuck in the middle. You look at the Chinese rivals and they're kind of biting at the low end of the market, appealing to people who are price sensitive. But then at the high end of the market, you're seeing new entrants out there from Lucid and in China itself from some of the local makers there. They're the hot new product to have in a market where early adopters or people want to have the newest thing. Tesla's lineup long in the tooth and kind of fighting for that middle realm where it's not quite sure how hot the market is.
Phil, what would you add to that? What would be the next important data point to watch?
Well, it's the robotaxi. I mean, this is the one that everybody is keying in on because people want to know if there is truly going to be the level of detail that will give them confidence to say, you know what, this strategy makes sense. On paper, what Elon Musk has said, whether you go back to the last earnings call or previously, on paper, it makes 100% sense in terms of what he wants to do. But the reality is getting robotaxi up and running and truly having an impact in terms of saying, okay, we have a fleet out there and it's X 100,000 or, however many vehicles and seeing some trajectory. That's what people want to see. So August 8th is really what people are focusing on, Kelly, because if it's another case of, well, we think we're going to be able to get this, but we don't have a whole lot of specificity, I think it's going to be a disappointment.
Right, exactly. But George, for you, how important is that as well when a lot of people would say robotaxi is a wonderful long-term aspiration, and yet in the near term, how tangible is it?
Look, it's an incredibly important date, like Phil alluded to. We'll see what exactly they talk about their long-term business model. But one key metric that we're focused on when they report earnings is FSD, full self-driving take rates. They lowered the price of it significantly during the quarter. They gave a free 1-month trial. And to the extent people believe in autonomy, which we do, it'll be really important to see how many people opted in and bought that software this quarter. That is the key to the near-term story, in our opinion.
Well, Tim, my question overall...
So I feel like it's my job to tell you guys what the future is going to be, right? As I told you, with the future, with Tesla, it's going to get better back half of the year. It's exactly what we're seeing. We're seeing the stock move up considerably. Obviously, it was 180 just a couple weeks ago, and it's already, pushing 220, 230. So the next thing is going to be when Tesla does have robo-taxis in the market, right? There's going to be, there'll eventually be competitors, right? And then when that happens, then people are going to say, oh, there's all this competition. So then you'll hear it from that, and they're trying to drop price and they're trying to undercut Tesla for these, robo-taxis and things like that. So you just got to understand the next game before we ever get to that game, right? Obviously, the next steps is Tesla actually launching Robotaxi, actually getting it into different markets, and then scaling it over the years. But then eventually there'll be competition, and then they're going to say the same thing that you're hearing right now in regards to EVs: the competition. Oh my gosh, the competition. They're trying to undercut Tesla and all these sorts of things. So you just got to understand like that next game that's coming, because guess what? When you're a big, large company, you're going to have competition. There's always going to be competition. Like, that's the name of the game, and you beat them, right? There's not a company that's a big, huge company that doesn't have competition. They all do.
This includes Robotaxi. Is what is the value of a Tesla you don't own, and who bears the capital costs and maintenance costs of that Tesla you don't own? Because to me, and maybe this gets to the details, whatever they are, of this Robotaxi strategy, that matters a whole lot.
Yeah, Elon has painted kind of two possibilities, two futures. The Tesla will own some of those vehicles, so it'll be like they have their own robot taxi fleet out there, but then also the potential for the consumer, for you to own one of these vehicles and almost be like an Airbnb situation where you rent it out, you send your robot out into the world to earn its living. The challenge, however, is we haven't seen this technology really from Tesla yet. They haven't demonstrated the ability to deploy robots into the world to act as robot taxis. We've seen some companies in the world do it. Here in San Francisco, I can go outside my door and watch a Waymo go by on a regular basis, but we haven't seen Tesla do it. And that's going to be one of the key things here in August is, where are these timelines for actually deploying real, fully self-driving technology?
So let me tell you about my Uber ride in New York City. So I only took one Uber ride the whole time we were on that trip, which was like an 8 or 9 day trip, right? So JFK to where we were staying at that particular time was called the Knickerbocker, because we stayed at two different hotels. One was the Knickerbocker, then we stayed at the Plaza. We stayed at one 4 nights, the other 4 nights, okay? So we took a Uber ride from JFK to the Knickerbocker, right? Guess how much that Uber ride was? That Uber ride was $112 before tip, right? And then you tip on top of that. So the moral of the story is extremely expensive. And it's not like that's a super long distance, to be honest. From JFK to Knickerbocker, you could literally do that on maps. It's not a super long distance, right? But there's a bunch of traffic you got to go through. And so why is a ride like that so expensive? Well, we know Uber wants their cut, right? But most importantly, there's a driver in that front seat, right? And that driver, because the ride took about an hour roughly because of traffic, right? Then the driver wants to make his cut as well, right? And then you have the maintenance of the vehicle, all those sorts of things. But the driver is what's very expensive. I would say if, let's say there was a Robotaxi, a Model 3 or whatever the future Robotaxi is for Tesla, right? I think if that came and picked us up and drove us that same distance, the ride probably would have cost, I would say, $40 or maybe $50, maybe $55, something like that. If Tesla was running like a Robotaxi fleet, and they would have made really good money on that, right? Really good margins. And that's special, right? That's really, really special, because then you just like, to have a human drive you around is just crazy at that point in time, right? Because you're like, geez, like the cost is such a substantial difference. But it's really the person in the front seat that's going to be making a lot of money, right? And Travis, the original founder of Uber, he's the one that called that out a million years ago. He said, the main issue we have is the driver in the front seat, because that's a huge cost, obviously, in regards to that, right? So that's very important to understand the financials and the mathematics around kind of that business model and where things will head and why it's such a huge deal for Tesla.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that clip here today. Listen. If you're an investor in the market and you do not feel like you're at a high enough level yet, let's say you understand some things in the market, but there's a lot of stuff that maybe you're watching my videos, you're like, I don't really understand. What exactly is that? How does this work? How do I find if a stock's undervalued or overvalued? How do I understand these financial statements on a higher level? All those sorts of things that you need to understand. I want you to click on the first link in the description down there. That is an application to join my private group, which has access to all my best course curriculums to teach you everything you want to know about this game, and all these things you might not fully understand. It's going to teach you that, okay? Plus access to my Discord community of 6- and 7-figure investors and myself, and exclusive videos as well. First link in the description down there. Apply, and once you join in there, say hello to me.
So this is huge, okay?
You know who this gentleman is right here? That gentleman right there, Travis Kalanick, okay? He's an Uber founder, led the company for many, many years, and completely disrupted transportation, an industry that hadn't been disrupted in many, many decades. If you go back to prior to Uber, transportation was really the same for decade after decade for the longest time, right? It was taxis, it was buses, it was subways. There really hadn't been any real true innovation in regards to transportation in general until, right, the smartphone came along, which allowed companies like Uber to come along, right? And then Lyft as well, right? And then other markets, other services came along. And Uber completely disrupted the transportation industry forever. Now, he came along in a very perfect time in terms of the VC space. The VC space was booming at that time, and that allowed Uber to lose billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars for the longest time, right? And nowadays, you take an Uber ride, it's very, very expensive compared to when you took Uber rides or Lyft rides, let's call it, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even for that matter, right? It's gotten a whole lot more expensive. And that's because Uber nowadays is very focused on profitability. They're at a very, very different place now at this stage in the game, right? Still usually cheaper than a taxi, but this man disrupted transportation forever, right? He's got a $3 billion plus net worth on him, and he's only 47 years old, right? Now, in regards to this gentleman, it's very important you understand the way things ended with him at Uber were ugly. Probably even more ugly than when Steve Jobs got kicked out of Apple the first time, okay? So he resigned from Uber in 2017, which resigned is kind of a loose term. A lot of people felt like he was forced out. And the way Travis kind of makes it sounds like he was honestly forced out of Uber, okay? In my opinion is he was forced out of Uber. That's my personal opinion, okay? After growing pressure resulting from public reports of company's unethical corporate culture, including allegations that were ignored of reports of SH at the company, Kalanick retained his seat on the board of directors until he resigned on that seat at the end of 2019. Okay, so the moral of the story here is that you got to understand is there was bad blood really between Travis and Uber, in my opinion, at the end. And I've listened to a lot of interviews of Dara over the years, and Dara definitely sounds like he tries to skate around the subject as well as he can possibly do. But I honestly got to say, Dara doesn't really have many good things to say about Travis. I've heard him be asked about Travis many times in the past. And Dara is the current CEO of the company. And I'm just telling you, like, my opinion is if people in public don't have that good of things to say, behind closed doors, they have a lot of really bad things to say. And so I think there's a lot of bad blood between these two. And also, I'll take this one step at a time, okay? But if you're wondering what Travis is up to now, he's leading this company called Cloud Kitchens, okay? Now, his Cloud Kitchens basically ghost kitchens. Have you ever heard of the concept ghost kitchens? Basically, it's a concept of you could be in like a warehouse type space or another type of space and basically be operating a kitchen. And this kitchen you could sell on apps like Uber Eats, DoorDash, Grubhub, all those sorts of ones, right? Postmates and all those guys, right? And so you could sell on to those. Maybe you're not really running a restaurant. You're just operating one of these cloud kitchens, okay, or ghost kitchens, and basically selling through all these different apps and things like that, right? And selling into delivery services. And so you show up there, and then people might look and they're like, man, I never heard of this restaurant before, but it's somewhere you can order from, right? And so it's been kind of a space that's been building up. It's a little bit, I'll be honest, of a little bit of a boring business model. They kind of make these ghost kitchens and then they got to rent them out. And in regards to this, it's going through a little bit of tough times here recently. Travis Kalanick's startup Cloud Kitchens fires staff and shuts sites. Former Uber chief's struggling food industry venture moves to stabilize finances, right? And this is the part that Travis really doesn't like. He likes a part of growth, build. I don't think he likes this part of like, oh, we got to focus on profitability, we got to focus on money. And let's just be honest, money's gotten a lot harder to come by. The VC space that was 3 years ago, if you go all the way back to after the GFC, all the way through to 2021, the VC space was booming and people couldn't wait to throw billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars at concepts like this. Now people are really watching their budgets in the VC space, right? And the people that invest into the VC space, some of them are looking and they're saying, man, I don't know if I want to do that because companies aren't really going public with these big valuations nowadays, right? So that makes people a lot more timid, right? And so at the end of the day, in the VC space, if people do want to put money into anything, it's really AI related. That's really the only space that's really, I would say, kind of booming somewhat in the VC space. Cloud kitchens, a lot of people are going to look at that and like, why would I invest in cloud kitchens? Like, big deal. Like, we're going to get rent from these folks. It's very costly to build out these facilities. I don't know if we want to, do that, right? Now, remember what I spoke to you about bad blood in regards to Travis and Uber, right? Well, here's the deal. From my understanding, Travis has no shares of Uber stock. None. From my understanding, okay? And certainly no huge position, because otherwise he would have to be disclosed as a major individual holder. So from my understanding, Travis doesn't own any Uber stock as well. Listen, if things had ended well between Travis and Uber, he would own Uber stock. The fact that he sold out all that stock after he, left the company and left the board of directors it clearly shows you that there was bad blood there, and he wants nothing to do with Uber, right? Which then gets us to this next very important portion, okay? August 8th. So, the Robo-Taxi Day. This is a huge day for Tesla. This is honestly a huge day for probably transportation, just to be quite frank. The day Tesla's going to show off Robo-Taxi and talk about their plans for the Robo-Taxi network, right? Vehicles that you can get into, and they will drive you around to wherever you need to go without a human in that front seat, right? Now, very important to understand that the build out of the Robo-Taxi should start in 2025. Now, does that mean all cities all over the world you're going to have Robo-Taxis in 2025? Absolutely not. When we're talking about build out starts in 2025, we're talking about Tesla making the relationships with very forward-looking towns, cities, states, right? Making those relationships and getting these robo-taxis into the market at some point, probably in late 2025 and going into 2026. That's what I talk about when I'm talking about the early build out of this business starts then, right? And then 2026, 2027, 2028, 2029 is like the build up, the scale out of the robo-taxi network as the years take on and they get into more and more cities, more and more states, more and more countries, right? It's going to be a whole process that takes many years. And by 2030, I would say in every single major city, honestly, probably in the world, but certainly in the United States of America, you're going to see Tesla robo-taxis in them. And that's going to be across the board by 2030. So it's going to be a build out year after year after year, kind of like Uber. It wasn't like Uber was available everywhere right from the go. Uber was built out as the years ticked on and it became bigger and bigger and bigger. And by the time Travis left the company, Uber was already uber famous. Like everybody knew Uber's service by the time Travis left the company, right? It became super famous. So this is a whole process and this is a massive undergoing, right? And honestly, does Elon personally have the time to personally build out this business? No, he doesn't, because he's a CEO of overall Tesla, plus he has SpaceX, he has a Boring company, he has a bunch of other companies, right? So can he personally be in the meetings and making relationships with different individuals that are politicians in these cities and the ones that are going to allow the product? No, he doesn't really have the time for that at this point in time. Oh, and he has that other pet project called X, right? Now, what's also interesting here is Elon just started following Uber founder Travis on X. So here's what is potentially going on behind the scenes, okay? Keyword is potentially with a capital P, okay? So Elon Musk talks to Travis and he says, you know what, we're going to, I want you to be in charge of building out the Uber of 2030 plus, right? You were the man who led that massive change in transportation. I need you to lead the next change in transportation, right? And you can run the show. You can be the leader of this business. I don't have time to personally lead this business. And this is one of the biggest opportunities in transportation since Uber. But honestly, this is an even bigger financial opportunity, right? Because you don't have to deal with driver wages in regards to this, right? But this is a complicated process to build out. It's going to take years and years, and you're going to have to invest 5 to 10 years of your life into this project. But coming out of this project, you will be seen as a hero visionary that not only did you build out Uber, but you also personally built out Tesla's robo-taxi fleet as well. And you're likely going to exit this, if we're successful and we build this out, with probably a net worth in the tens of billions of dollars because of how much Tesla stock would go up over the next decade if you're in a situation where you're going to get a ton of options as a leader of this business call it kind of the number 2 at the company, to be honest, and this builds out and scales up, how big this would be, Travis's net worth could go from $3 billion something dollars to maybe $30 billion over this next 10 years, right? Which is a huge opportunity. Now, Travis could look at something like this and they say, you know what? This sounds like a lot of fun. This sounds a lot better than leading this boring, sleepy ghost kitchen business that I'm leading right now. There's no romance in leading this ghost kitchen business. This isn't probably going the places I want it to go. It's probably not going to help out my net worth go where I want it to go. It's probably not going to help out my legacy go where I want it to go. This is not what I really wanted it to be. This is boring. And this other opportunity is the chance to change transportation forever, right? And I can be the leader of that. And so I will be seen as a visionary leader in regards to Uber and in regards to the robo-taxi fleet. You know what? I think I might want to take advantage of an opportunity like this. Now, everything I just ran you through there, right? Oh, and mind you, right? Remember I talked about bad blood with Uber. How much do you think Travis would love it if he could be the one to bury Uber over the next 10, 15 years? Bury the company he started, that he's got tremendous amounts of bad blood. Wouldn't that be something special? Talk about legendary. You change transportation forever with Uber, then you bury it. And then you're responsible for the company that is the company of the next 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years of robo-taxis, right? Wow, wouldn't that be special? And then you could say, regardless, you could see Uber being eliminated anyways, potentially, keywords potentially. Now, Uber can partner with maybe Tesla or other companies in the future, so they might not get eliminated. That's important to understand, right? But if you have a view that potentially Tesla could bury Uber and Lyft and those sorts of companies, would you want to be the one putting them in the dirt, or would you not? Especially if you got bad blood there, right? Ooh. Now, my opinion is Robo-taxi will be successful with or without Travis. That's my personal opinion. However, if Travis was to lead this unit and he was to be the CEO of the Robo-taxi side of the business, I think things would scale out much faster, much better, and there would be a lot more success a lot faster if Travis was leading this. This man understands how complicated this thing. He understands how to work with these cities, work with these municipalities, work with these different states, right? And get these products into market and build it out over time. I mean, the fact that Uber exists in New York City is crazy in itself, right? Like, that's just wild. And the fact that Uber was able to scale as rapidly as they did, right? This man understands how to get it done. This man understands, what's that famous saying I'm thinking about, right? Don't ask permission, just ask forgiveness. Travis is one of those type of guys. And guess what? Elon Musk is one of those type of guys as well. They appreciate that, right? So my opinion is, I think this rumor might actually hold some weight. And although it might sound like a long shot at first, when you kind of run through it all, you're like, damn, like, I could see Travis leading that unit. Like if Elon Musk gave him that opportunity, let's say Elon Musk comes to you and you're Travis and he gives you this opportunity. He says, I want you to lead this business, change transportation forever, right? Would you rather do that, or would you rather lead your ghost kitchen business that's already having a ton of trouble and is not going to be seen as visionary anyways, right? Ghost kitchens are a dime a dozen. Like, I could start a ghost kitchen right now. Like, it's nothing special. You know what I can't do? I can't start a freaking robo-taxi company to compete with Tesla. I can't do that. But I could personally start a ghost kitchen. If you got some money behind you, you could go start a ghost kitchen right now. That's not complicated. That's not special. Robo-taxi changing transportation for the next 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years? That's special. Would you really turn that down if you were Travis? That's a lot of money to turn down. That's a lot of prestige to turn down, right? Never mind that. You probably position yourself as the number 2 at Tesla, which if Elon, we know there's always rumors about Elon eventually leaving Tesla. Let's say Elon wants to leave Tesla 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Would you want to set yourself up to take on that leadership role? Travis is only 47. That's young in business terms. Most of these business tycoons and these entrepreneur folks, they work on business till the day they die. Right? A guy like Travis, he's probably still going to be running and gunning at 70, 80, 90 years old, right? So at 47, he's a baby still. Like, could you imagine him eventually, like, running this business, building up successfully? Then 10 years from now, Elon decides to peace out, and then Travis takes over the helm at 57? Is that hard to imagine? No, it's not hard to imagine, right? So, pretty legendary stuff if this was to happen. And the other thing I'll say is, this is the type of thing that only Elon could pull off. If this actually happens, like, it's shocking, right? Who else could pull something like this off and make this even a possibility of a reality, right? Where they have somebody that's already been a previous founder, multi-billionaire, and they bring them in not to be the CEO of the company, but to be the CEO of a specific unit. If Elon was to pull this off, I'm telling you, that's a one-on-one. There's no one else can pull that freaking stuff off, man. Because usually when somebody's a founder of a company and they get their net worth up to $1 billion or a few $1 billion, they're never working for somebody again, right? But if there's one man that could pull off something like this, it's the guy who's done the impossible a million times, and we know Elon Musk has. How many times has it been counted out? How many times have people said, he can't do this? No way. He can't pull this off, and he freaking does it. How many times, right? So, we'll see. We'll see. But August 8th could be a very big day. Imagine Tesla on that day shows off the product, talks about the vision, and then Elon brings out Travis and says Travis is going to lead that unit. Could you imagine that? I mean, insane. Insane. That's all people would talk about for a long time. And you know the sort of premium Tesla stock would get on at that point? You think Tesla trades at high forward Ps right now? You ain't seen nothing if they get Travis to run the Robotaxi network. If they get Travis, because then you're talking about, you've got the guy that already changed transportation huge, leading the unit to change transportation again, and now you've got a really like famous, very successful, clearly as day, right? Guy that's working as a number 2 or number 3 at the company. I would view him as a number 2, right? Plus Elon. Oh my gosh! Like, are you kidding me? Do you know what sort of premium you got to put on the company at that point in time? Because who else would have 2 people that successful working at it? No one. I keep track of every company that's a big company out there. There's no one that would have those 2 successful people. You got arguably the most successful person in the history of business, Elon Musk. Simultaneously, you got Travis working as the understudy. Oh, come on, man. Come on. That's a whole other level. No one's got that. No one's got that as their number 1, number 2 at a company, right? Crazy. So, we'll see.